All right, everyone, welcome to the 1440p test of Alan Wake 2. We are on the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte model, and this is the WindForce edition, the WindForce OC model of the card. And let's just keep on going through it. We are at the low preset, and it leaves a lot to be desired. It gets rid of a lot of environmental detail, but this is a way to run 60 FPS at a native resolution. Now let's just keep going so we can get through all of these presets, and then we'll get into the DLSS and the frame gen and the ray tracing later on. Just pay attention to that black bar at the top of the screen, and that will give you the relevant information that you need to know as you skip around. And I've got chapter markers set up. All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so we've seen low. Let's go to the next level, which is medium. As you can see, we're at DLAA with no frame generation, and down here we do not have ray tracing turned on at all. So this would be a medium preset. This is kind of where this card sort of does the best, in my opinion, as far as like the way it looks, as far as like the environmental detail and how well it runs. We are at 50 FPS, but this is, again, not a fast-paced super shooter kind of game. You know, this is a slower pace, more story-driven murder mystery that you happen to play through. So just keep that in mind. As frame generation gets introduced, you're going to be able to see how you can get this game to run very, very well and look really good at a nice, high, smooth frame rate. But, you know, just keep in mind, frame generation is not real frames. It is fake frames. It's just little JPEGs in between the real ones. But for what it's worth, frame generation does have a value in a game like this because it's not as fast paced. So anyway, I digress. We'll get to that later. This is medium. Let's jump up to high and just see what that does for us. All right, so let's come down here. This is high. Now we have some other preset, we have some settings in here that the preset doesn't necessarily take care of. We will jump up to that next, just so we can see worst case scenario, how bad does it run on DLAA with everything totally maxed out. All right, so this is a 44, 45 FPS experience here. I'm not gonna dwell on this too long because you can kind of see that these settings don't really make a huge difference once you go to medium. The next step, you know, high, and then the highest preset, or the kind of highest manual preset that we're going to do next, doesn't really move it too much. So you can come down here and get, you know, get a good experience all the way maxed out for the most part. All right, this is that beach that you start off on with the creepy dude. All right, so let's come in here. And let's max this thing out. So we're going to go all the way up to high. Again, this is no DLSS and no frame generation, but we're not using any ray tracing. And that's going to kind of become apparent that once you turn on that ray tracing, you're going to start to have some pretty bad frames. So right now we're at 37 FPS. And for what it's worth, you know, this is playable. It's not ideal, but, you know, if you kick on some frame gen at this point, it will smooth it out tremendously. And, you know, since it's not a fast-paced shooter kind of game, it, for some people, can be fine. Some people won't mind it at all. It'll be a nice, smooth experience. And, you know, you're not on a super, you know, expensive card. So you're not at, like, the top of the line, you know, 5070 Ti or 5080 or 5090. So really what you're paying for here is value, and I think that this does have a lot of value whenever you start to implement that frame generation and that DLSS. So let's just see what that does. Let's jump over here and turn on a little bit of DLSS. So we're going to turn on the quality DLSS, and we're just going to jump down to that medium preset and work our way back up. All right, so this is quality DLSS, and that gives you a 60 FPS experience, 70 FPS experience even, with just a shift to quality DLSS. And I can tell you quality DLSS looks almost, if not just as good as native, and sometimes better, because you do sharpen it a little bit just to clean it up. And I mean, it looks no different, in my opinion, from a native experience whatsoever. So really, to use it is almost like, duh, you know, you might as well. It's worth doing for sure. And it's going to save you some resources too, because that base resolution lowers down. All right, so let's jump into balanced and see what that does for us. I'm going to come in here and go to a balanced preset. Again, we're not changing anything. We're still at medium. This is just medium balanced. And that gives you a 78 FPS experience, 79. What I'm trying to do is see how high I can get it before I turn on some ray tracing, because that's really going to tank our performance, and I want to make sure that I have a little bit of insurance to make sure that whenever I turn that ray tracing on, I can still maintain enough frames to then frame generate from. That's just where you're going to have to be on this card. You're just going to have to kind of accept you're going to frame generate if you want ray tracing. All right, but it is possible. All right, so let's just jump in here, go to the next setting up. So we are going to go to performance. Now, ultra performance looks quite rough, I will say. So I'm going to go to that, but this is as low as I would personally go, is performance. It is the slightest bit blurry far in the distance, but as far as visually, it looks really, really good still. I mean, this is not bad at all. It gives you a nice high frame rate. Again, without the ray tracing, you can definitely play at this and have like a really good experience without the need to frame generate or anything. All right, so what will it do if I turn on ray tracing? So let's do that now. We're still at the medium preset. We're going to go through this step by step, layer by layer, and get to where we want to get to. All right, so if we turn on some ray tracing to low, it's going to do its thing and think about it and all that kind of stuff. So let's turn this on. All right, so it's kicked in. All right, it takes a little bit. So that gives us right at 60. So this is a medium preset on a performance DLSS setting with low ray tracing, and that gives you 65 FPS. Not too shabby, really. I mean, if you think about it, it's really doing a lot of, the heavy lifting. Is being made possible, I guess, because DLSS does lower that base resolution. Now, whenever we come in here and we look at how much further down can we go, we can go to ultra performance, which is probably what we're going to have to do if we want to go higher on our ray tracing. So this is ultra performance. It does look a lot softer, a little bit blurrier. I don't like the fuzziness of ultra performance pretty much on any setting, on any resolution. This is just kind of like if you really want to just get the most performance and you don't really care about the slightly degraded visuals. I'm not really into it, but I did want to show it. You are still over that 8 gigs of VRAM utilization, so again, make sure you get the 16 gigabyte model of this card. They're identical, the 8 and the 16, but the 16 gigs is just absolutely worth it almost all the time. There's not really a situation where I've said, oh, definitely just get the 8 gig because it's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. It's worth it. Just get the 16. It'll last longer, especially as these games start getting more and more demanding on the VRAM and start utilizing more and more of that frame generation, because that is tied directly to your VRAM. Frame generation needs VRAM to work, period. All right, so let's jump in here and see what the next level of ray tracing will do for us. And let's come back up here and go to a quality DLSS setting. This is ray tracing medium on quality DLSS, 30 FPS here, 31, 32, 34. Not going to dwell too long on this. It's not really where we want to be, but you could frame generate here. You really could. This game is not fast paced. You could definitely take care of smoothing it out with some frame gen. But let's just go to that next level. So we're going to go down to a balanced preset. And again, we're leaving our ray tracing set to medium, and we're not doing any kind of frame generation right now. So that's going to give us 35, 34, not a huge jump, but it does matter a lot when you're this low. Even 5 or 6, 10 FPS difference does make it feel a lot smoother and gets you a better frame generation result, from having a better responsiveness. Right now, the responsiveness feels okay. Of course, your responsiveness is going to matter when it comes to frame generation and that kind of thing. But if you do frame generate from here, again, this is not Doom or any sort of competitive shooter at all. This would be fine to frame generate on. I think you'd still have a pretty good experience, as a result. But let's just keep going. Let's come down here and see what the next level gives us. This is performance DLSS, medium ray tracing. Now this is much better feeling. This is a 45, 46 FPS experience, and it gives you a lot of frames as that base frame rate that you can then take and frame generate from. So this wouldn't be a bad way to go either. It just all depends on, again, this is all personal. That's why I like to show an exhaustive list of possibilities on these videos. They can get long, so use the chapter markers up top, down below. You know how it works. So I try to set this up for everyone so they can get something out of it and get some real value. If you do find this valuable, please consider subscribing. That is my one and only time I'll mention subscribing. So thanks for watching, and let's get back into it. All right, so let's go into these settings here, figure out what we need to do next. So we need to check out ultra performance. Again, this is not something that I would necessarily want to do, but this is all medium on ultra performance, and that will give you 53, 55, right at not quite 60. And again, this is just very, very grainy. The fuzziness just, I don't like it. So this is quite a heck of an upscale. I think it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's pretty low. This is, yeah, going from 480p up to 1440. So let's just avoid that. All right, so let's jump into, let's see, go to high ray tracing. Let's see, what else do we need to do here? Let's go to quality. So we're going back up to quality, no frame gen, and we are going to go to a high preset on the ray tracing, but leave everything medium. This is still the medium section of this. So that ray tracing does give you about 31 FPS, 31, 32. Yeah, so let's jump over and see what we can do with some upscaling. Let's go to balanced and check that out. All right, so that gives you right at 34. So these going down in the DLSS settings gives you about 5 or so FPS per setting, which isn't a lot, but I don't think that this game really needs that ultra high refresh. I've said it before, I say it again, mainly because people do skip around in my videos. I like to repeat myself a little bit just to make sure I get the message across. This game does not necessarily require 60 FPS. At this setting right here at 32, if I frame generate, I can have a good experience. Not like, you know, the most amazing thing compared to like a 4080 or a 5080, but it is a good experience for the money. So PSA on that, you know, I mean, the DLSS stuff is really, really freaking good. All right, so let's jump over here. Let's come in here and go. So we're on medium. Let's go up to ultra. Oh, actually, we have one more thing to do. We need to check out performance and then ultra performance. All right, so this would be a better experience. Again, that gives you about that 5 FPS that we were talking about earlier. Gives you up to 40. 40 FPS, frame generating from here would be fine. I'm just going to say right now it'd be totally fine. There'd be nothing wrong with it at all. It would be a nice, smooth visual experience, and your responsiveness would be totally okay, especially on like a controller for a game like this. You know, again, it's not Doom. You know, it's not some competitive kind of thing. It's just a story-based game that you happen to play through as a detective. You know, it's a narrative game. I'll put it that way. All right, so 44 FPS here. So let's jump over here. What else do we need to check out? Let's go into the ultra performance setting here. Again, grainy situation, not ideal. Gives you about 53 FPS or so. Not worth it visually to me. I would not really want to go this low, but for what it's worth, I'm just showing you because you might want to know. But yeah, anyway, let's just keep going here and check out some of the presets on high. So we're going to check out the high preset down here. So this is, oh, actually not high, it's ultra. So ultra ray tracing. And then still on medium, we're going to check out quality, medium preset on ultra ray tracing, and see what that does. If you hear my fans, that's because the PC is really working. All right, so that gives us 32 FPS, 29, 27. Again, this is just a quality preset. Looks just as good as native. However, it is definitely not a high refresh or high FPS experience by any means. If you're touching 20, you might need to do something. All right, so let's just come in here and check out balanced. I'm going to go through all of it. Feel free to skip around. That's what this video is meant to do. All right, so that gives us 35 FPS, 34. Not 60, obviously, about half that, but throwing in some frame gen on this would be, it would definitely smooth it out and it would look a lot better. All right, not as choppy. I definitely feel the choppiness, but it's not, unplayable. It's not a slideshow. All right, let's go down to performance on this setting. All right, come down here. Okay, this is performance. That's pretty good. 45 on this title with ultra ray tracing at 1440p. Medium preset. Yep, looks pretty good. Not not going to win any awards here, but 40 FPS and frame generating from here would be absolutely doable and give you a nice smooth experience, especially again on a controller. All right, definitely controller friendly game, so that's good. All right, what do we have to do next? We need to jump over here and try out ultra performance. Again, medium, just showing you the settings again, medium with ultra ray tracing. This is ray tracing, path tracing, all that stuff. All right, so that gives us 60. So we're at 60 FPS. Wow, it's pretty nice. All right, so you can get a 60 FPS experience here with ultra ray tracing on a medium preset. Okay, just keep on running through here. Now, of course, you can frame generate from here. That would be super smooth. This is smooth already. You're giving up some visual quality, of course, but for the most part, you can do it. All right, so let's go up to high. And this is not the highest setting, but it is high. I'll go through all that too. All right, so go back to low and go back to our setting here of quality. Again, no frame generation yet. That's just more icing on the cake than anything else. I'm trying to show you what it looks like without any frame generation at all. And then we'll test that out at the end of the video. Again, I repeat myself a lot. People like to skip around. Please do so. Use the black bar at the top and all the information at the bottom as well in the timestamps. Sometimes I run out of characters in the timestamp because I do a lot of testing, so be sure to just use that black bar. That's the most accurate way to skim through my videos. All right, so this is 39 FPS here, 38, 37. Just kind of going around here. Check it out. Look in the woods. Yep. All right, so come in here. What do we got to go to next? Let's go to balanced. And let's see, still low. All right, so we're still low. And we're going to go through a balanced preset here. 41, 40, 42, 45. Looks fine. All right, let's keep going. Try to get through some of this stuff rather quickly, just so we can get on with the test. All right, so let's see. Let's go to performance here. Gives us a 48 FPS experience. Now you can definitely frame generate from here. That'd be fine. Again, this is just low. This is just the low ray tracing preset. All right. Now let's come up here and check out our next level here. We can go to ultra performance. Again, this is something that I really wouldn't go to, but for what it's worth, I wanted to show you. So this is a high preset, ultra performance with a low ray tracing preset, and it gives you 68 FPS. A little bit soft, not quite as sharp, kind of fuzzy a little bit. You can maybe work with some of the sharpening, but yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired as far as the fuzziness goes. It's definitely not how I would want to play it. I'd rather have a little bit less FPS and make that up with frame generation than look at a fuzzy, blurry picture. All right, so let's just keep going through here. Let's go up another notch. Okay, we're going to go back up to quality, bring this all the way down, and turn on that medium ray tracing. So this is high with medium ray tracing. Visually looks really nice. That quality DLSS looks super sharp, and really good experience here. 34, 35 FPS. I say that only because this game does not require a super high refresh rate. It is a bit choppy, but you know, with frame generation, you could eliminate that entirely. All right. Let's come through here. 28 FPS, 29. Looking pretty good though. Promising with frame generation. I'll put it that way. Big asterisks on that. All right. So let's jump over here. Just kind of show you what we need to do to get this to run a little bit better. Balanced will give you a little bit more, about 5 FPS as we kind of discovered here. 35, 34. Now the difference between like 28 and 35 is a big difference. It feels way better. I know it's crazy me talking about 35 FPS feeling good, but you know, I'm saying this through the lens of the type of game this is and the fact that you can frame generate and the fact that it is a controller friendly game. So all of those things combined will give you a nice experience, even when your base frame rate is 35 FPS. All right, I'm just trying to help people out there who might not be super aware of these things. You don't need to go spend $2,000 on a video card to run this game and have a good experience. That is just something you don't need to do. All right, let's see here. Jump into here, and let's go down to performance. This is performance. 48, 45 FPS. Now this is nice. This is a great experience. You can frame generate all you want from this particular base frame rate and have a great experience on a game like this. Perfectly acceptable. You do not need 60 FPS on this title to have a good time. Period. You just don't. It's just something you don't need to like really, die on that hill over for a game like this. It's not Doom. It's not the finals. It's just a story narrative game. All right, so 41. All right, so let's come down here and drop into ultra performance. Again, this is grainy, so grainy, but it does give you a little bit more FPS. If you're into a grainy, blurry image, I would again just make this up by going up in my DLSS setting for a clearer image and just making that up with frame generation to play this game. All right, 65, 63, 62. All right, let's come over here. And now that we've tested out all that stuff, let's come down here and go to, let's go to a high preset on our ray tracing, and of course we're going to leave it on the high preset, and we're going to come over here and go back to quality. Let's see what this does for us. 27 FPS, 26. All right, VRAM is fine. We have the 16 gig card on this, so no big deal. So if you're considering the 8 gig card, just pay attention. Don't buy it. Buy the 16. All right, so 28 FPS here. All right, looks really good though. Very, very sharp image. And you're right at 30 FPS, which for what it's worth is about what a console targets usually. That's just something to keep in mind. It's acceptable to enough people that a console targets 30 FPS on a game like this. All right, let's jump over here, and we can definitely do better. We can help it out with some upscaling, some more upscaling. That's going to give us 36 FPS here. 34. VRAM allocation's right at 10. Utilization is over 8. Okay, but a nice stable VRAM usage, not spilling over. That VRAM S is staying pretty locked right around where it should be. And our system RAM is just right there at 14 gigs, which is totally normal. All right, so let's jump over to the next level of DLSS. Come in here, performance. Performance DLSS gives you 37, 38, 39, 40. Way better. All right. And of course, performance is about as low as I would want to go in this title. So let's check out ultra performance just in case anybody, doesn't mind having a blurry picture. All right, so just to recap, we're on the high preset. and we're down here on high ray tracing. All right, so let's jump into here. This gives us 51 FPS, 52. A lot better, but at a cost of some blurriness, especially in the distance. You are upscaling from like 480p or something really low here. So all these little twigs and branches, they kind of shimmer, and the smaller, thinner parts of some of these trees and like the fence really do get hit the hardest. But it's still acceptable. I mean, it gives you a much higher frame rate. So for what it's worth, there you go. All right, so let's check it out. Let's go back here. What do we need to do next? Make this as comprehensive as I can. All right, so go back. We're going to go back up to quality. We're going to go back up to ultra on our ray tracing. We're still at the high preset. All right, so we're still at the high preset right here. And let's check this out. All right, 25 FPS, 24. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to help it out a little bit more than this. All right, but this is, you know, pretty much maxed out. This is as high as you can get on both presets. Now, we haven't done the highest on kind of the manual little, you know, few options that high doesn't cover. But, you know, this gives you 25 FPS, 26. All right, so let's jump over here. Graphics. And go down to balanced. All right, so this is changing nothing at all. We're just going to go to balanced DLSS, gives you 30 FPS here. And like I said, this is about a console experience. This is about what a console would target, and a console wouldn't frame generate. So you can kind of think about it like that. You know, you are able to layer that frame generation on top of an experience like this and get a very nice high refresh, super smooth visual experience. If you throw a controller in your hand, you're going to have a pretty good time. I mean, I can say it again and again. This game doesn't in any way, shape, or form require 60 FPS to be a good time. You just don't need to worry that much about it when it's a game like this that's narrative and story-driven and slow-paced. And, you know, you're basically just playing through a visual novel at this point. You know, it's kind of one of those style games. It's not something where you have to have super fast reactive responses. All right, so let's just keep on going. I'll get off my soapbox about that, but yeah, anyway, go down to performance. So again, a recap, we got the high quality preset, and we are on ultra ray tracing. So ultra ray tracing right here, and that gives you 40 FPS. Super smooth as far as comparatively to the other settings, at least. A lot of people argue with me, but that's okay. You can argue. 40 FPS is fine, especially when you throw whenever you throw that frame gen on top of this. It's going to be okay. All right, so let's jump over here and go to that next level. We're just going to go to the ultra performance, the blurry setting. That gives us 50, 46, 49. Just trying to give you a good, exhaustive list of possible options you can do to play this game on this card. All right. Let's just keep on going here. 52, 51. Much more responsive, of course. Feels really good at 50 FPS, but again, this is not a shooter. You shoot in it. It is not a first-person shooter. For anyone who wants to talk about my semantics, there you go. That's what I meant. All right, so 55, 52 FPS. Now let's jump over here. All right, let's see what we can do. All right, so that's ultra performance. This is a high-quality preset. Everything is maxed out as far as the preset goes. Now, we could come in here and adjust some of this ray tracing, because that is absolutely the hardest thing that is, you know, causing this FPS dip. But, you know, as I stated at the beginning, I want to go back up to quality. I want to go to the highest preset, which is kind of a manual override. I want to drop this ray tracing down to low and work my way back up through it, and just kind of see where we're at, and maybe adjust some of the stuff as we go along to see what can kind of give us the best experience, and then do some frame generation. All right, so this is a quality preset. the absolute highest settings as far as like all the stuff toggled. So this is the higher than high preset, and this is a ray tracing preset set to low, and this is a quality DLSS setting. All right, so that gives us about 37 FPS. All right, let's jump into here now. Just trying to look here, see what we can do. All right, so let's leave our ray tracing alone at low. Let's come in here and go to let's go to balance, see what that does. It's probably going to give us about 5 more FPS like normal. Yep, about 42, 43 FPS. Now, like I said before, the lowest I would go would probably be performance. And if I really wanted to just see how far I could push this card, I would probably use that performance DLSS. It still looks really good, still sharp. The difference between performance and ultra performance is pretty big. But the difference between like quality, balanced, and performance isn't, it's more incremental. Ultra performance is like really, really upscaling. Okay, that's like kind of Hail Mary, the Hail Mary setting if you just really want it to run like a lot better. All right, but 50 FPS here isn't bad at all. All right, so let's jump into here. Kind of come into here, go down to performance, and leave my ray tracing alone. Now I'm going to leave it here, and then I'm going to work my ray tracing up and see kind of where it hits about 40 FPS maybe, and see if I can do some ray tracing from there. All right, so this would be performance. All right, so this is about 52, 50 FPS with that low preset on ray tracing. Again, I want to be around 40 when I ray trace, or when I frame gen. When I frame generate, being around 40 on this title feels about fine. I mean, it feels pretty good, especially with the controller again. All right, so right now, we can go up a little bit more on our ray tracing. So let's do that. So again, this is completely maxed out all the way out. Go to medium ray tracing, and that gives us 43, 44, 45. So we might be able to go up a little bit more on our ray tracing depending on what kind of section we're in, which matters less and less as you play through the game. I'm the type of person I'd rather have 90% of the game feel fine and just put up with the 10% that might not be perfect, rather than set my settings to the hardest thing in the game to run and then put up with like a less visual experience for the 90% of the remainder of the game, if that makes sense. That's just kind of my perspective. If there's a section that's harder to run, you know, if it's just totally unacceptable, then you address it then and there, and then you can of course set your settings back. But you know, that I can tolerate a few, you know, uncomfortable sections of a game. That's not a big deal to me. All right, so about 40 FPS. All right, so this is about where we're at. We can do some frame gen. It's around 40. All right, so right now let's just come down here, and we can turn on some frame gen. For the people that want to see high and ultra, let's just do it. I'll do it real quick. That gives you about 35, 33. Still feels okay. It's better than console. Again, consoles typically target 30 FPS. So you could absolutely do some frame gen right here. Not a big deal at all. Let's see what the next level would give us. All right, so that would be ultra ray tracing. So this again, let's just run through it again. This is a performance DLSS setting. No frame generation at the moment. Everything here is completely maxed out. So this is higher than the highest preset. Everything is as high as it can possibly go, and everything ray tracing wise is as high as it can possibly go. All right, we're at 37 FPS here. And don't scoff, don't be like, oh my God, he's trying to sell me on 30 FPS. It is a console experience, and we have not done any sort of frame generation at all yet. So for the type of game that I'm considering, the type of game with this, and the fact you can play it on a controller, you know, this would be an okay way to run this title. It wouldn't bother me personally. Again, it's all very personal. And over here, I'm seeing 40s. I mean, you could definitely take this thing, run it at all the max settings, and still be okay on a performance DLSS setting. So using performance, which still looks really good, especially on this updated model. I am running the updated transformer model, DLSS 4. So I can come in here and easily turn on that 4x frame generation, And I'm going to tell you right now, this is so smooth. It feels so much better. And if I were on a controller, I would not notice the any sort of responsiveness issues at all. And for a game that's not Doom and not a competitive shooter, is perfectly acceptable. I think it's totally fine. Now we're going to work our way back up through the DLSS setting to see what we can do on a quality and DLAA method. So let's just come into here and go up to balanced. So this is balanced, still feels pretty good. I can tell a little bit more lag on my mouse, but it gives you 93 FPS. And let's see what the quality setting would do. All right, come into here, jump down. Let's go to quality. All right, so that was 25 base, but this jumps you up to 89. Again, not ideal on a mouse. Definitely feel a little bit of lag in my movement. So if you're a mouse and keyboard player, you might want to stay down in the performance area, or maybe a little bit less ray tracing. But yeah, this feels okay to me. If I were on a controller, I feel like it would be fine. All right, so let's see what DLAA does. Again, you know, this is typically not a setting that I would recommend. I just want to see what a base frame rate would be. 15 FPS. Horrible. Just so slow. This is the slideshow. This is where it's unplayable, in my opinion. This is like way too low for it to be fun. You know what I mean? So let's just jump into here. And just for, you know, kicks and grins, let's turn on 4X. See what it feels like. Yeah, very laggy. It's still not even 60. Very laggy, though. This is obviously not a realistic experience at all. All right, so how would I play it? This is how I would play it personally. All right, sorry for the cut, but I had to get my camera situated. Some things are going on. So I've got basically the settings that I would run at right here. I would go with a 4X frame gen. That's going to give you close to 40. I'll go ahead and cut it off just so you can see what I'm talking about initially, then I'll turn it back on. Performance DLSS, I'd run through here. I'd use the quality preset of medium. So the medium preset looks just fine. I think it looks really, really good. And a low ray tracing preset. I think that gives you a little bit of that nice ray tracing feel without just totally tanking your performance. So let's jump back into it. And this gives you 52, 53. I thought it was 40, but it's actually a little better, so that's nice. Right at 60. So, you know, you could absolutely frame generate from here. I could personally probably do with a little bit more visual detail and then frame generate. But if you want that 60 FPS base experience, even though I don't think you need to, you know, necessarily require it, this would be a really good way to play this title with frame generation because, you know, you've got that nice smooth fluid experience. This would just give you that icing on the cake. And everything would feel really good. You know, it gives you about 162 FPS. So you could come back in here, and now that I kind of see where I'm at as far as with that frame generation and how it feels, I would probably come back in here and just raise that quality preset back up to high. That's going to give you, let's see, what's the base frame rate here. I just want to double check. I'm not misleading anyone. That gives you 54 FPS, so you're losing a marginal amount of performance to get a little bit more detail in there. And that gives you 62 FPS, sometimes 50, but, you know, as we've already stated, if you have frame generation enabled, you can really get some nice fluid visuals without the need to necessarily have 60 FPS as the base frame rate, because that frame generation is going to smooth out anything possible that shows up, and it looks really, really good. This is super smooth, and this is how I would personally recommend playing it, either the medium preset or the high preset with that frame generation turned on performance, and everything looks really good. So if you like this kind of content, I'm not going to directly ask you to subscribe because I said I wouldn't. Earlier in the video, I said that was the only time I was going to ask you to subscribe, so I'm definitely not asking you to subscribe. But if you wanted to, you could. It's free will. So we'll see you in the next one. Peace.